definitely a clearer, the first, paragraph A is laid out a lot more clearly. Like I said, there's a few words here and there that I had run across. I had this set of notes that I forgot about, and so when I saw them last night, I incorporated that. But this all needs to be voted on. Like I said, my original intention was to have a little subcommittee thing here and we vote on the changes. Well, we could have done it as a committee of a whole too. But I think it's probably better if we wait till April. Then you're not just believing what I said. You get to look at it and, if you're wondering, well, why was this done in a certain way? Those are good questions, because we'll have to, those kind of questions will come up through the rulemaking process. Like the next thing, once we submit this to the commissioner and say, look, these are the changes we're recommending, the department looks at it, and if they want to make, if they see things that they think should be done differently, they'll make the changes. That will be submitted as what's called the initial, initial proposal, yeah. Initial proposal. The department, by law, has to show us that initial proposal before they actually submit it, beginning the process. And then there are going to be the public hearings, and as a result of the public hearings, a final proposal is created by the department. And again, by law, they have to show that to us so we can look at it and comment on it. We have no final say, but, it gives us a chance to make comments, both at the beginning of the actual process, which hasn't begun yet, and at the near the end of the actual process.
Is this a rules committee at the DOE, or is it the JELCAR,
Okay.
the state, or is it Board of Education? What is it?
See, JELCAR, the Board of Education will decide, they vote on whether to submit the initial proposal.
Okay.
Then, if I remember right, the first review is by the attorneys in JELCAR. Later on, the second review is the attorneys and the legislators on JELCAR. But you guys are more, I'm remembering this. You guys work with it more than I do. So.
No, I know how that process goes, but I wasn't sure if it meant that these changes had to go to JELCAR. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, they go twice.
Okay.
At the beginning and again towards the end.
Okay.
Then they have to go to the state board also.
Yeah.
Yeah, the state board would be the one that submits it
Finally.
to JELCAR, I was looking for there's like a 1 or 2 page summary of all the steps, and I had just seen it, I had seen the link for it just last week, and I should have just printed it then. So yeah, I couldn't find it. So that's something that's kind of useful to know. So what happens in this process? What exactly happens? Because roughly what happens, that's not good enough.
If you find that link, can you share it with
Yeah,
the
oh, yeah.
council? And
I was going to bring it in today. I was going to bring the printout in.
are there public hearings before the Board of Ed and JELCAR, or one or the other?
No, not before JELCAR. Oh, wait a minute. Once somebody told me that at JELCAR, people actually get a chance to speak. I hadn't known that.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I've never gone to one of their meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
We have
Joe
enough.
has public hearings.
All right. I can find out. If I find out any information, I'll send it out to you.
Thank you.
See, what I had previously thought was that the public hearings were before the State Board of Education. But it's possible that even if it's not a full-fledged public hearing, it's possible that people can go to some of these JLCAR sessions too. But, Barbara's gonna find out about that for us.
Mhm.
I know the recent special education ones were, the hearings were here before the board.
Right. I know there'll be hearings here, that I know for sure. Just the JLCAR part, I'm not positive of. All right, so,
Is it?
yeah, it was a simpler thing than that.
Okay.
I found that, I was hoping for like I said, this is like one or two pages, and it's, pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions or comments on, because I don't want to keep talking. Better answer questions.
If we have comments before the April meeting, should we
Yeah,
send them to George?
Yes. Phone calls are best, emails are good.
yeah.
Um,
Because like I said, it's easier to clarify on a phone call what's, exactly what you're getting at. Although some people are really good at email. I mean, it takes me years to compose emails, so I'm not big on emails. Yeah, and really, any objections that you have or suggestions, or what, you didn't address such and such, okay. I'd rather hear about this ahead of time than only hear about it at public hearings, So whatever you come up with, you're welcome to.
Well, I would imagine George can probably say what conversations we all went through in all these 3 or 4 meetings we had and why we ended up writing it the way it was. Because there was a lot of conversations, obviously.
Yeah, there were 5 meetings.
Was it?
I had separate minutes for each one.
Yeah, and we all really, we had good reasons.
It's kind of wild. After a while, I just see this in my dreams, maybe my nightmares. Anybody else have anything to? Okay. Done with that section.
All right.
Leave it right here, I'll shoot.
Where am I? Oh. Helen, do you mind talking about this?
Yes, and I didn't bring any copies of it with me. so
I brought a couple.
Oh, okay.
I brought copies, not to be exclusive, but I brought copies mostly for homeschoolers to send these out to our various different groups so that any complaints that are received, they maybe head them off at the pass, but I'll let Helen talk about it.
Yeah, so I think the concern was raised about that the school districts might be reaching out to homeschooling parents more often than they should be or at all.
Right.
And,
Yeah, feel free to
Oh,
check.
yeah.
Yeah.
and so Jen Palmicato, who runs this special ed support center for the Superintendent's Association, brought to my attention that this had come up from I think she was at a state board meeting.
Okay.
And she said, can you look into this? Are people confusing the requirements of IDEA, which is the special ed law, and the requirements around child find as a contact to a parent that is intrusive and not allowed? So I sent Kitty a copy of that child find part of the IDEA law, and then there's a sample letter that my district uses, because we are required annually to reach out to any child that qualifies under child find. Child find has kind of multiple branches. There's like the preschool piece where you're trying to flush out, are there any munchkins out there that have come to our attention through pediatricians or early intervention services or something, and just trying to put a notification in the newspaper. We put it on our website. We kind of just through the school system, asking about siblings and stuff. So if there are children out there who there is a suspected disability, that they have the opportunity for an evaluation. And then there are the children who are identified at school age and they are maybe enrolled in our schools, and parents may refuse services. They say, yeah, that all sounds good, but we're good, we don't want that. They become part of our child find, or parents decide to educate their child in a different school. They may pay for a private school, parochial school. We even have a parent paying for a special ed private school that was a decision of the team, but they said that's what they wanted. So they're all part of child find because they still are eligible for special education. And so we're required to give annual notification for that. So homeschooling students would be the same. If there's a child who qualifies for special ed, the parents decide to homeschool, we're required to give annual notification that we're still here, till age 18 or 21, depending if you get a high school diploma or not. Anytime you want, we will convene the IEP team to relook at your child and re-offer an IEP. It depends how long it's been since we've had eyes on. That might require some updated evaluations in order to make an offer, an IEP that is most applicable, acceptable, and a placement that matches that. So that's why that happens. And so kids thought, maybe that is something that's coming around. So I don't know what percent of the population of homeschoolers that affects, but I haven't had, I've had two.
Maybe it's assumed.
In my 5 years in my district, I have over 700 students in special education in our SAU. Wow, I think I have 2 who decided to homeschool
Okay.
in 5 years. So I don't know how prevalent that is,
But it's a good thing to have out there.
So quick question for you, Helen. For the families that are homeschoolers to begin with, when they have asked, and of course it's only happening in some districts, homeschoolers have inquired about getting testing, not the services, but just the testing, and are being told they can't. What, besides telling them, yes, you can, it's child find, what else can we do to help them or help the districts understand that testing is supposed to be available to them, even if services are not?
Right. So the first step is actually not testing. The first step is convening a team to make a decision, are assessments needed? So parents would have to come in with their question, like, I suspect a disability in speech and language. And my reasons for that suspicion are whatever data they might have. Maybe it's a report from a pediatrician, maybe it's some evidence that they've noticed, well, compared to my other 3 kids, this one is not talking nearly enough, and I know that's not typical. So the team has to then decide, is there enough evidence around that question that we would need to investigate further. So it's sort of a 2-part process.
Okay.
So a referral does not necessarily equal an evaluation, and they're not the only ones who are confused about that. There are classroom teachers who think, oh, let's just get some testing. That's not the process. Let's refer to special ed and make a determination if testing is appropriate.
Okay.
Because we don't want to test every kid that comes to team because it's not always appropriate. And some parents would be on that end of, no, I don't want that, I don't think that's needed. So you get both ends of it. Then once evaluations are done, the district is obligated, if the child is eligible, to offer an IEP. And the parents, that's usually when homeschool parents say, no thank you. But no, it's here, and then they would be in that system of child find notification after that.
So their first step, just to make sure I'm really clear, is that they ask for that team meeting.
Yes, they make a referral.
Referral.
And there might be paperwork that they would be given to fill out, which should collect from them some data.
Okay.
Right. And one of the things that some districts might be pushing back on is that there's this piece before a referral or before determining they're going to do evaluations that school districts have to use. It's called a response to intervention. Okay. Because if a child comes, because there are some teachers who just won't want to deal, and they know, refer to special ed. So RTI, response to intervention, was put in place so that students will go from 0 to 60 with nothing in between. What have you tried first? typical general ed interventions that are offered to all children. Just, you know, it's called short-term intensive intervention. Let's do this again, more frequently for the next 6 weeks, with using a slightly different strategy, whatever, not special education or specialized instruction, but the same thing the teacher was doing in a slightly different way. And if there's a response to that, and the child closes that gap, gets that skill, you go, well, that's not special ed. That's just, we needed to reteach more intensely. And some, you know, I always say kids grow out of their clothes at different rates. Kids learn at different rates. So not all kids, the first time around that, you know, addition, subtraction are taught, are gonna get it. And if it's not brought back to them again a couple different times, that gap's gonna continue to grow. So that's what RTI was meant to do, is catch those kids and don't necessarily put them in special education, but give them regular ed intervention, short term. But RTI is not a lifetime sentence. And I've had some kids come before, like, they've been in RTI for 3 years. And I panicked just a little bit, because that's not RTI. That means you've been doing special education without a plan and an evaluation. And so I know we have in our district a private school, a Montessori school, and they will often make referrals. And they will come to meetings, and they'll say, so what do you have for information? Well, we don't have anything. We give them things to try. You need to show us that this child is not capable of learning by direct teaching of the skills, because the nature of their program is they don't do direct teaching. So it might just not be the right kind of school for that child. It doesn't mean that child has a learning disability or something else. Some kids just need direct teaching. Some kids, there's nothing natural about learning to read. But they can learn to read if they're taught. And some kids just all of a sudden start reading. I had one of each, you know, in my family.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird. And the same thing with math. So that may be what they're getting, is a little pushback. Like, well, what's your information? What makes you suspect that there's a disability?
Right.
And have you taught these things? You know, children aren't just going to all learn by osmosis.